So I'll call to order the Milton Fire Commission. It is now 6:02 p.m. Let's start with confirmation of a meeting notices.
Yes.
Thank you, Jenny. Next item is approval of our agenda tonight. Anything that we need to correct or adjust? Motion to approve the agenda would be in order.
I'll move to approve.
A motion by Teresa, seconded by Brian to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Agenda approved. Next one,
Here comes Larry.
Approval of minutes from January 21st, 2021. Any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Linda, seconded by Beth to approve the minutes from January 21st, 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. The next part of the agenda is Chairperson Report. This is on here for a couple of reasons. First off, the past few meetings have been nothing short of very strenuous. People are very passionate about the fire service protection, and I know that conversations, sometimes people disagree. So over the past 6 months, we've gone through a lot of processes to try to make the fire department a better place for our people and for the forward-thinking nature of the community and fire service protection for the community. In doing so, I've noticed a lot of tension and a lot of commentary that from both the city and the town about trying to reach agreements. And sometimes that makes confrontation. Sometimes that makes a lot of passionate disagreement about what we should do going forward. I want to remind everyone and just plead that we need to maintain our composure the best ways possible, professionalism, and try to move forward level-headed and try not to get offended at other people's opinions. Everyone's going to have differences of agreement. Let's be forward and coming with our disagreements, but hold them accountable and not be disingenuous about other people's comments and opinions. That being said, that's the reason for this being on the agenda. There has been a lot of tension in this room, even though it's a virtual room. And I want to ensure that this is a place where we can discuss open ideas. And even though we may disagree on things from time to time, we can still create resolution. So that being said and out of the way, we'll kind of move on to our next item on the agenda, which is public participation. Does anyone on tonight's meeting wish to talk to the commission about any particular issue? And if you're trying to speak right now, just double check that you're not on mute. All right, hearing nothing.
Joining us tonight. I hope that people have things to say.
Well, hearing no public comments, we'll move on to old business, which is discussion and possible action regarding the staffing in the station. The subheader under that is discussion and possible action regarding Battalion Chief Lucas's resignation from his battalion chief position to a firefighter position. Everybody on the commission should have received the resignation letter sent by Chief Lucas about wanting to reduce his responsibilities at the Milton Fire Department for personal and professional reasons. Difficult for him to manage a full-time job and then still manage the duties and responsibilities expected of him at the Milton Fire Department. And it has put a lot of strain on his personal time as well as his professional time. So first off, I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank Chief Lucas for the countless years of service, over 30 years of fire service for Milton, providing this incredible base of knowledge that he has given to other firefighter and EMS personnel and help make Milton Fire Department what it is today, which is a top-notch part-time service with now full-time personnel. And the dream that he had starting off as a firefighter and EMS personnel and Milton is really grown and look where we are now. You know, it's pretty crazy to see the changes and the good impacts that he has made in the department. So I want to thank you very much for all the years of service as you worked your way up through the leadership chain of command. And we do appreciate everything you've done for the department.
I'd like to echo what John has just said. I really can't add anything. It was very well put, John. I am just so thankful for all. I know we all are, but I just want to echo all that John had to say too, and completely understand, but it is definitely bittersweet to have received that email. So thank you again, Chris.
And I will say the same also for all the years that I have worked with you, Chris. You have taught me as a commissioner a lot of things about the fire service, a lot of details, and you have also done an incredible job throughout the years in working with the other firefighters and EMTs, and you know, just thank you for that. And thank you for staying on, even not in that capacity. I'm really happy that you decided that you would still stay on with us. You're very valuable to this organization.
Chris has always been a leader historically. For chief at one time, and I'm really glad that he's going to try and give some time as a firefighter here yet too, because he's always a go-to leader and he's become a common denominator in this department for so many years. So I appreciate that, Chris.
I'll just say thanks.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
I guess I would say the same thing, that I hate to be so redundant, but you are greatly respected and honored in all that you do. So thank you very much.
I think I could speak for everyone on the commission here tonight that you'd be absolutely welcome in the department in any capacity you serve, with the knowledge, experience you bring, your passion and enthusiasm for the fire service, and of course, your disposition and always trying to help other people any chance you can. You're such a giving person, and your selflessness really shines through and makes this department what it is today. So that it really makes I can't stress it enough. It makes a big difference having you at the fire department and working shifts and being with your crew members. So we'll gladly accept whatever time you're willing to give the Milton's Fire Service, even if it's not as a battalion chief. We're more than happy to accommodate in a fire position role as a fireman. So that's being said, with the resignation letter, we're going to accept the resignation, Battalion Chief Lucas, and place him into a firefighter position, just as a formality, not necessarily as a requirement that we have to make a motion, but probably for the record, just to show that the resignation was accepted into the record. Might be a good idea just to make a motion for that.
I would move we accept with regret and thank Chris for his continued service.
Second.
Motion by Bill and seconded by, was that Linda? Okay. Yep. And seconded by Linda to accept Chief Lucas's resignation and reassignment to a firefighter position. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Chris, do you have any commentary you would like to add? Maybe a few more words of wisdom for us?
No, I appreciate the kind words from everyone. I know that probably over the years, I might have been a thorn in your side at times, but it was all for what I believed in and what I felt was best. So I thank everyone for the kind words. If it wasn't for the Milton department, I mean, I got my start here, basically learned a lot of things here and helped me put me where I am in my fire service career today. So it's been an honor, but it's time to move on and do some other things in my life at this point in time. So still help out where I can. I'm sure the chief and I'll have a discussion and figure out where it is that I fit in, and we'll go from there. But just want to say thanks.
Thank you
Mr. Chairman, can I say a few words, sir?
Absolutely, Chief. Go ahead.
So Chris Lucas is a guy that they don't make him like that much anymore as a firefighter. Chris got his start as a volunteer, and we've had many conversations, and he recalls the fact that he would have done this for free for many, many years, and he did. He was a guardian of our community. He built our community. He had many sleepless nights where he was out in the cold, out in the rain. Probably missed many family celebrations with Jenny and the kids. Came at a price. Came at a big price. And so I'm going to miss Chris's leadership, although he's still going to be around because trying to talk him into that. And but I'm very thankful and very grateful. And so I know Chris is leaving because it's time to transition to I guess, to kind of retirement semi. And so my friend, you've earned it. I'm really, really proud of you. And I'm looking forward to some really good years for you. So congratulations.
Would anybody else like to add any comments to the discussion of possible action with the resignation of Chief Lucas? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to the next item. Discussion and possible action regarding an update with the meeting with the City of Janesville for the consolidation model. Do we have any more information on the consolidation contracts or any further guidance from the administrator and anything like that?
John, could we go back to the other item? I was kind of hoping that we were going to get some kind of an update of what the chief is going to do with our staffing at this point in time with this news.
Sure. Chief, do you have any more updates on the battalion chief position?
So as you know, there's no, I'm not going to lie, this is a big gap. This created a big gap. And so it's a kind of a complex problem. And I'm trying to think about this. I know Chief Lucas has given us till April to transition out. So I've got some ideas. I'm trying to formulate. And so I'm just not in a position to share that right now. But nonetheless, big priority.
I know that there's people in the department that have been doing a lot of training and such. So I'm anxious to see what we hear at our next meeting. I know promotions could be taking place. I have faces in my head as I'm talking about this.
Yeah, Linda, I appreciate that. I'll do my due diligence and I will promote the person that I think is quite capable to fill the shoes of Chief Lucas.
Chief, do you have any more comments on the staffing before we move on?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we'll go back to discussion and possible action regarding an update from the meeting with the City of Janesville. Brian, you want to take over?
Yeah, we haven't heard anything yet from the City of Janesville. Mark Freitag, I understand, is working on language. I haven't heard anything on the progress of it. We definitely expect some sort of update soon. I don't know if I see Anissa's not on. But,
she was working late, but she is coming on when she can.
So I don't know if she's heard anything. Maybe the chief has some input, or maybe Al might be aware of any communication, but I have not heard anything just yet on language, draft language.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a little information if I could share.
Absolutely, go ahead.
So yeah, Brian, I just received the draft from City of Janesville attorney today. So I'm in the process of going through it, and I think it's a pretty good draft. I'm planning on sending it out hopefully tomorrow to yourself, sir, and the mayor to review. And I just want to stress it's a draft. And for example, not to discuss contractual issues as we've all agreed to in our meeting, but I'm going through the draft to make sure that it states in there that an ambulance, a fully staffed ambulance with 2 paramedics and an engine with 3 personnel, 1 officer, 1 driver, 1 firefighter paramedic, will staff the Milton fire station. So it's language like that I want to go through to make sure the community is definitely protected, and the contract vehicle assures that happens. And so I hope that I get through this hopefully tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, but I'm thinking by Friday you should have that in your email. And I just want to stress it's a draft, right? So it is nowhere near the final document, and I think we have a lot of opportunity to find the right spot through some really, really good dialogue. So that's all I have.
And I'd like to also add the echo that we fully anticipate that this is going to be a very rough draft. Not that it may very well hit very close to a final version of a draft, but we do anticipate some review of this before bringing it to the commission, as the mayor and I were asked to talk with the chief and city of Janesville to bring a good draft forward to the commission. So yeah, thank you, Chief. So we'll anticipate trying to move forward with that as soon as possible.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Brian. Go ahead, Linda.
I think that this is a very important step in time for our fire department and EMS and paramedic services. I would like to make a motion to have the chief do an equipment assessment and bring that information to us at the next meeting and then the meeting after, because I'm assuming that he will have to contact people, and I believe that there would also be a cost.
Chief, do we currently have a document like that on the books, or has it not been updated?
Well, I think we probably have our equipment in Firehouse, which is our report management system in our department. So I'd have to look at that. I will reach out to Chief Parker, but Linda, we could absolutely start that process if that's the desire of the commission. I don't think it'd be hard to get all that. We probably already have that, if my recollection is correct. And then as far as if you're thinking about what apparatus cost, then my idea was to reach out to a nearest, I think, fire apparatus dealer and have them come in and assess the equipment from a cost perspective. I think that would probably be the best, but we'd be. When you say
assessment, do you mean appraisal? I'm not sure what an assessment means.
Yeah.
Yes, appraisal.
That's what I understood.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was clear if it wasn't something else I wasn't thinking of.
No, sir. An appraisal, if the commission wanted to get a look at cost, and once again, that's based on the conversation of the contract itself and what that looks like. So this could be worthwhile, and it could be a menial task at the end of the day. We'll see.
Okay.
Well, I know that we have a list of equipment that we were given in September of 2019 with, it was actually a replacement schedule. But my understanding of this consolidation is that the equipment is going to be part of it. And if Janesville is sending us back papers that we need to be looking at, I just feel like we need to be ready to keep moving on this. I don't want to wait and talk about this for 3 months. I just, I feel like we just need to get to it right away. And I did make a motion.
Yep.
I'll second.
All right, so motion by Linda and seconded by Teresa to do a fire department appraisal, or if you want to call it evaluation of all of the equipment the department currently has on its books. Any discussion?
Does that include property? That'll be part of the same part of the discussion. I don't know how far that will go in the discussion until we get a final version from the city of how they'd like to, what they perceive as moving forward.
I think, Brian, it'd probably be a smart idea not to pile everything on top. I think it's a good move to start moving with the equipment and just hold off on fire stations and property. And
okay, I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, just equipment and loose equipment of, a value of, $1,000 plus or more or something like that. So we'll have to establish some criteria.
Yeah, I understand. I agree. Thank you.
I didn't hear that, Brian. I'm sorry.
I wondered if we wanted to get property valuation, and that might not be necessary immediately.
Well,
I'm talking about land and the building.
But we're going to be replacing that building. So why would we want to do that property?
I guess that depends on the discussion with Janesville and how that's perceived to move forward. But we're not quite there yet with that decision as far as what we'll move forward with in a written agreement, as far as whether it's brick and mortar and equipment or initially equipment. We don't know that yet.
So why don't we amend it to say to appraise equipment in value of $1,000 or more?
I think that's how it was understood. Is that different than the motion?
It wasn't stated as such.
There was no.
I would second the amendment.
Okay.
All right. So right now we have a motion for amendment to the main motion for inclusion of $1,000 and above equipment to be appraised. Essentially, the $1,000 of equipment specifically is the amended portion of the language that we're talking about. So, all right. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of amending the main motion to include language of $1,000 or greater value for equipment, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Back to the main motion. The main motion now reads to evaluate all equipment that is $1,000 or higher for appraisal value. Is there any discussion on the main motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, Chief, if you can please look into that, and hopefully within the next meeting or so, at what's about 4 weeks away, is that doable for you to do an evaluation?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can try to get there. If not, I'll let you know.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Any other information to discuss on the City of Janesville consolidation? All right, next we'll move into how we're going to pay for it. Referendum for 2021. So again, this has been put as a standing line item until we make a decision going forward, either to embrace a 2021 referendum or to decline going for 2021 referendum. So if we don't have anything to talk about specifically, we can move on, but it is definitely on here for discussion.
I thought that we were going to have it on there because we were going to determine if we needed to have, if we were going to hire somebody professionally, say like RW, he had offered to help us with a referendum, or how we need to do this, but we really have to get moving on this pretty quickly.
Go ahead, Brian.
We had set a goal to try to have, if necessary, language in place by August, I believe, is what we understood as a commission. So yes, this has been on the agenda the last few months. I anticipate at some point trying to move forward with any professional help we might need or solicit to develop language and timelines. But we did understand that by August, we were going to try and have anything accomplished to prepare us that was necessary.
And I know it's a little bit of a strange situation because the two municipalities would have to go do their own version of a referendum. So whether or not this would be the commission hiring someone to plan that referendum, or if that would be on each municipality for their individual referendums. I'm not exactly sure how that process would work, but I guess that would be kind of up to the conversations and who wanted to pay for it. Either it's going to come out of the fire department's budget or it's going to come out of the municipal budgets to basically plan and facilitate the actual referendum. So if we're talking about information and education, that definitely could be a fire commission issue. But when it comes down to actually running the referendum and for the election process, that will be on each municipality. So I guess it could go either way, however the commission feels comfortable moving forward with it.
I don't think that that's the way to go. We have to be one united presenting this referendum.
We would be, but you have to do it individually at the council level and the town board level to actually pass it. But
correct, but to get it started and put all the information, I think that we need to start doing it now. And I actually wouldn't be opposed to doing some RFQs for the next meeting to see how much it's going to cost us. I don't remember. I could look back to see what it was that Jeff Romer had talked about for that, but you know, and we have, you know, we're okay. I don't think that it should be up to the municipalities to pay for the initial information. I think that should just be the, commission.
I think that's fine either way. Ultimately, the municipality is going to pay for it. I think we do have a consensus that we would invest in it regardless. Whether the commission takes the lead on that, maybe Al might have some input on that, but whatever it takes to move forward to try to develop a goal and accomplish something.
Yeah, I guess my thought, Brian, is I would agree with you. Ultimately, it's up to the municipalities to pay for it, since really the fire commission has no money, no taxing authority. So the individual municipalities would, you know, unless there's residual dollars in the fire commission budget, which I think we're all pretty certain that there isn't, that it wasn't budgeted as part of the 2021 budget. So there would either need to be an amendment to the budget, or if the fire commission wanted to dip into its reserves, you could utilize those funds. But ultimately, you know, we're talking about tax dollars from the two jurisdictions. And so it's probably semantics, but I understand both Linda and Brian's point.
Yeah, I think the initial question by Linda was, does the commission take a lead in starting the process so that the municipalities can clone the language and the goals and the sales package if needed?
Yeah, and that I think I would agree with that approach. Again, I don't get a vote in the matter, but you know, I agree with Linda that there needs to be, you know, kind of a uniformed voice and a uniformed message, irrespective of whether you live in the town or the city. You know, the goal is the same. I think the challenge is right now is what's the goal, and we don't know that yet. We're pursuing. You know, there was a vote a couple of weeks ago to pursue conversations about a consolidation, but that's as far as we have gotten. I think it's, you know, so until there is, in my opinion, until there's a definitive answer from the commission that yes, this is the direction we want to go, or no, we want to go a different direction, it would be hard to begin to craft that messaging because we don't know what we're messaging yet. That's how I see it from the outside looking in, to a certain degree. I guess I'm kind of on the inside. I don't know.
Yeah, and to a great extent, the draft language for consolidation with Janesville is an initial component that's necessary prior to jumping on the wagon with moving forward with language and scheduling referendum.
All right. Well, I'm not hearing any other information that we'd like to discuss on this line item. I'll open
Do we
up.
want to get a hold? Do we want to call Jeff? Do we want to get started on this?
Well, I think one of the things you have to think about before you bring a consultant in is what parameters do you want that firm or that person to do? What role do you want them to play? Do you want them to handle any kind of mailings that go out to the community? Do you not want to do that? It goes back to some of the stuff that Al was just talking about. I think we need a little more firm framework to work with before we just say, hey, what would it cost? Because the cost is going to be heavily dependent on what we want them to do.
Right.
Okay, so then can we just start with the first suggestion and let's just sit here with this agenda item and decide, are we committed to a Janesville consolidation, yes or no?
Well, we haven't reviewed draft contracts yet. And
No, we've been doing this for over a year. I mean, by now you don't know whether or not you are fully in support of consolidation with Janesville?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not without seeing language. We have to learn.
Yes or no, please. All I want is a yes or no.
It's not possible to make a decision yet without reviewing the final language.
Brian, you have a very clear point that we can't adopt something that we have not yet seen the contractual language, because if we adopt the first version, it may have holes in it that isn't really in favor of either municipality. And so we really need to review it when we receive that information before we can proceed. I would agree with you, Brian, in that regard. It's too early at this time until that contractual language has been brought to the municipalities and then ultimately brought to the commission to be discussed, because we don't know what those parameters look like. Yes, we've agreed in previous meetings to move forward with contractual negotiations, but until we come up with a contract, there's like a blind check. We don't know what that entails. So
outside of an agreement, what you're telling me is that you cannot say right now, yes or no, that you, the town of Milton, do not believe that consolidating with the city of Janesville and the city of Milton is a good thing or not. You're telling me that you can't say yes or no to answer that question. And I'm actually getting a little frustrated over that, because I know I myself have spent a lot of years working on this situation, and quite frankly, what you're telling me right now is that you cannot commit to the idea. And if I'm sorry, but if you can't even make a definite yes or no to a commitment of an idea of a consolidation with two municipalities that we have already been spending at least 3 to 5 years on, then that to me is a very severe problem. Because what is happening now is that what's happening now is that the 5,600 people that I represent are going to sit here and wait. And I don't think that I just don't believe it's acceptable. You need to tell me yes or no. Are you in with Janesville and the city of Milton or not? Because the agenda items will have to change. I'm not going to spread this out another 5 years. We're in a situation where we need to get this addressed.
I have one answer. I have one answer to that. The commission voted to aggressively pursue language and attempt to resolve that and find a contract. So that's the only answer I have.
I don't think it's appropriate, Linda, it's demanding the town, in particular, the three commissioners from the town, to make yes or no whether or not we would make a commitment to the consolidation. Of course, we've made a commitment to contractual negotiations. That was a commission issue and we move forward with it. But are we going to accept whatever terms are put in front of our face without having those terms? I don't think that's fair.
I never said anything about terms. Are you in for consolidation? Yes or no? That's what I want to know. The contracts and all that are always going to still be worked out. I want to know if you're still interested in consolidating with Janesville.
I gave you my answer.
Okay. Well, John, you gave me yours. Beth?
That's what I have to say. I have to say, very similar to Brian, I would like to see the contractual agreement before we say, yes, let's consolidate with Janesville. I mean, we've already agreed to move forward with talks of consolidation and actually create our concrete facts and information. And I would be very interested in pursuing that and seeing what that looks like. So I think we've made that determination in past meetings. But I guess the idea of, are we 100% in by just saying, yes, we're going to consolidate? Well, I don't think neither of municipality is in that phase yet until we have those terms. So I understand what you're saying, Linda, but I can't get behind what you're saying to be reasonable to ask at this point in time.
I mean, we seem to be further behind than we were even a year ago. And I think that's what part of the issue of what she's bringing forward. You know, you seem to be backpedaling harder than going forward. And we are having a hard time trying to come to some kind of agreement on where we're even at. Each time the issue comes up, it's like, whoa, we have to go back here, we have to go back here, and we have to go back here. And it becomes very frustrating.
We're about to review a contract for...
We understand about a contract, Brian, but when everything comes up and you come up with a different reason every time, and it's not even just this current year, this has been going on for years about working together, and it just becomes more cumbersome and less willing to work together, less willing to move forward. And it, you know, you begin to wonder what it is you really, really want. I think sometime we're going to have to be a little more open and honest about what it is you really do want and what it is you're really looking for.
The town has been open. We've been moving forward. We've been moving forward, and we tried this model of shared services. We're in the process of reviewing a draft contract for a long-term commitment. I don't know how you can imagine that we're not moving forward with this and that we're backtracking in any way whatsoever. I find no evidence that we're backtracking at all.
There may be disagreement on some of the things that have been talked about in the past. I don't see that as backpedaling. We want to make sure whatever comes in front of us makes sense for both municipalities and makes sense for our communities. So
what does it make sense about supporting the need for a new ambulance? We talked about it.
Can I ask, this is not an agenda item that we're discussing right now. I have to stop this
We're discussing a referendum. And you know what? I'm not convinced. I personally am not convinced that you people are in support of what we're doing to begin with. I was so disappointed when I found out that 2 times that you turned down an ambulance.
Okay, so that is correct.
Whoa, we've been talking about this for 2 years.
Linda, we're talking about the referendum right now. We aren't talking about the ambulance. If you'd like to talk about
the referendum, we've been talking about for 5 years.
I understand that.
Tell me, are we going to actually go through with this referendum? No, I am like incredibly upset. I am incredibly upset. You're not getting the point here. The point is simply this. We talked about this department and all of the things that we were going to do in this department. We've talked about it for the last 6 years. We get down to an action. We've got 80 calls coming out of our department a month. We get down to one action, one ambulance that's been talked about for 2 years. And now you're telling us, oh no, we're not going to cover that. So how do I know, after I put all of my time, our staff's time, and everybody else's time into this, that you're going to do this? Because your actions are not showing it. And that is what my frustration is. And so you want to talk about a referendum? Okay. Are you really going to support the equipment needs of this department and the payroll needs? Because that's what the referendum is about. The referendum is supporting our department. Let's be very clear about this referendum, folks. It's not the building. That was a previous agreement. Town board, city hall. We're making a building. We are building a new building. Already discussed, already done. Equipment needs, maintenance of equipment. Already discussed, already done. How long are we going to do this? I'm not jumping on this merry-go-round with you guys anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. I feel like I have been a disservice to the people in my community. I think that at this point in time, we need to go back to our individual governmental bodies, and we need to take a very serious look at exactly what we're doing.
I support the need for a referendum, and I've given my answer on that.
At some point, we need to come up with the funding to support full-time firefighters and EMS in our department. That, I don't think there's any question about that. We need to move forward with that. And if referendum is the method of doing that, I believe everyone on the commission has agreed that that's what we need to pursue. But again, what does the model, staffing model, we don't know any of that yet. So we can't pursue any of those dollar amounts. We've all agreed that referendum is the best way to get the funding necessary. So, I mean, I don't know where else we can go off of that, Linda, until we get the information we need. And it's taken several months to do that, but we've actually been moving a lot faster than normally in the past 6 years. So we got to the point where we are about to receive a contract, which is going to have that language, how much staffing we're going to need to figure out how much we're going to have to afford for each municipal budget. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse and say, you know, we're not holding up to our end of the bargain, because we've always paid our bills. We always ensured that we have the best equipment possible in the department, and we have been doing that for many, many years. Now,
what happened?
Well, right now we are going through contractual negotiations of determining what equipment we need to have in the department. And if the ambulance that we're going to replace isn't necessary to be replaced for the new department because they won't be utilizing that second ambulance, it's going to be one ambulance, that makes a difference. What equipment is needed in that department makes a difference.
Who told you we would not have 2 ambulances in that? Where did you ever get that idea? We run 80 calls a month, even just this last month. This has been during COVID. Prior to COVID, we had 100-month calls. Where did you ever get the idea that we would not have 2 ambulances in our department?
I'm actually from Janesville.
I'm going to defer this to Chief Rhodes. Chief Rhodes, in one normal satellite station, what equipment is housed in one station, please? Your general response equipment, I should say, specifically ambulances and fire.
Chairman, your question was if it's a satellite station and not like a headquarters. Correct. It is a station that is part of a multiple station response or system.
Yes.
What kind of equipment would be in that? I would say at a minimum, it would be an ambulance, it would be an engine, and it would be a tender. And then depending on, you know, the other areas, you probably want to add a brush truck, potentially a rescue boat. So that's my first.
Thank you, Chief. Linda, that's my point. There are potential structures for our department that may not require the purchase of a new ambulance. If this consolidation takes place, let's say next year, then we may have just purchased an ambulance that we may not have needed to purchase yet for several more years to replace the ambulance that truly needs to be replaced that's already 3 years old. So I think that's to Brian's point. We don't have a definitive equipment model of what the new department will look like, and that will come in the terms and the contract that we receive.
We are not going to start this consolidation tomorrow. It's going to be a year and a half, 2-3 years before we do this. Sure. So what you just decided is that you're not going to buy a new ambulance for what we have until we actually get through a consolidation. Now, do you understand how I can be upset about this? Have you ever had the ambulance at your home? Has anybody on this call ever had the ambulance at their home other than the ambulances?
I have not.
And when those people came, were you wanting them there right here, right now? And they did exactly what they needed to do? I don't know about how it was with your situation, but I can tell you that the 3 people that came to my house and the nurse that was in the emergency room literally saved my mother's life. Now, maybe that might be a little bit of a too much personal information, and some may even say, hey, this is a conflict of interest. But no, I'm going to tell you, no, it absolutely is not a conflict of interest. What it does is it tells me that I haven't done my job in the last 10 years, and I still don't have a building for these people. And I just now have gotten payroll. And, you know, John, you just said that you committed to supporting our equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened this week? Jim made the, let's see, it wasn't Jim. Jim seconded the motion, and the other gentleman on your board that I've never met before was the one who made the motion.
John. Mm-hmm.
So what are we going to do? Chassis it out for another 20 years? We got the information in the spring of 2020 meeting. Ambulance 1341, primary response ambulance. 2016, Ford E450, 65,000 miles. 2006, Horton Type 3 body, rechassied 211. Ambulance 1340, backup ambulance, 2011 E450. 2000 Horton Type 3 body, rechassied in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Why did we waste our time? Why did we tell these people to come up with the schedule of equipment when you're going to say, because we don't know this, we're not going to give them what they need?
Could I jump in, please, and express my thought process in that while I heard you say, Linda, that you're thinking that this consolidation could potentially be a year and a half, 2-3 years away, I'm of the understanding that this is going to be fast-tracked, that in my mind, it's the chicken or the egg scenario here. In order for us to experience a referendum, we have to understand what the thought process is going to be with a consolidation. And so I personally am interested in looking at what this looks like for our entities, for our municipalities, in terms of a consolidation. And then I'm looking to the referendum. I believe it needs to be consolidation conversation first, with the knowledge that a referendum is necessary. We absolutely have to have a new station. That has been established. But the vote, as far as I can see it, in terms of this topic, this agenda item, which is referendum, in my mind, is that we have to know what our consolidation options are, and that it will be fast-tracked. And it's not going to take a year and a half, 2-3 years for that consolidation to take place. At least I'm surely hoping not. I would like to see this done very, very quickly, that we are able to look at this draft, and we will be able to move forward with a yay or a nay, and then look at what this looks like for us. So I now have to take care of the dog that's going to paw the door down. Excuse me for just a moment.
And again, I reiterated in the previous meeting that the equipment that we're currently utilizing is not faulty. It's not, other than general maintenance, there is no were not down to one ambulance. There's no major mechanical failures. The equipment is functioning as it should be without any issues. So, I mean, we're not at the point where we have to. Go ahead, Bill.
May I suggest, since we're talking about the ambulance anyway, and I don't think there's action on the referendum, that Correct. We move on to the ambulance discussion. It's the next item on the agenda. I think it makes sense to go there.
Yep, thank you, Bill. So we will move on. And is there any further discussion on the ambulance purchase? I know we've already covered some of it, so thank you for that, Bill. But I just wanted to reiterate my point. The mechanical failures of the ambulance has not been an issue. There have been general maintenance issues, that oil changes, replacing filters, replacing light bulbs, things like that are general maintenance. So because we don't have an ambulance that is in dire need or even desperate need to be replaced, we need to look at the consolidation model and see what equipment we really need. Are we spending $300,000 unnecessarily between our municipalities? Is that fiscally responsible to our municipalities to spend money on an ambulance we may not even use, because it'll be something that we are going to have over equipment on and will be liquidated? I don't know. That's why the agreement is so important, to be able to see what that looks like and see if that's even necessary to purchase an ambulance this year, or if the primary ambulance that we're going to that we have will be good for 2 to 3 years when that one's scheduled to be replaced. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. I want to ask a question, I think ties these two items together. And the question is, would we be having this discussion about the ambulance and not approving the ambulance if it weren't for the discussion of the consolidation? You know, my reading of past history, and I'll admit my history on the commission is relatively short, but my reading of where it's been and following it through the news over the years is that the Milton Township Fire Department has been good about following a replacement schedule, about trying to upgrade the equipment and make sure that the residents of both of the primary communities involved are well served. I think that if it weren't for the consolidation discussion, that we wouldn't be having this discussion about the ambulance. Both the town and the city would have approved the ambulance, and we'd be moving forward with that purchase. We have no assurance that even if we get to referendum, and I think, you know, Linda's questions raised about backtracking, you know, I was dismayed when suddenly at the last meeting, we were talking about consolidation with Edgerton. You know, my understanding of exploring the contract with Janesville was that we looked at options for a full-time department, which Edgerton is not. We looked at the options, the two options of a full-time department, one of which was a standalone full-time Milton Township, the other a Janesville consolidation. And we looked at those, looked at dollar signs on the two. And my thought that moved us forward as far as exploring a contract was basically saying, if services offered in a consolidation with Janesville are at least equal and the dollar signs are less, that we would move forward with the Janesville consolidation. Now, I understand, I wouldn't say, let's vote tonight to consolidate with Janesville without looking at the contract either. I mean, that's an important step. However, I do think that there is a sense of frustration on the part of the city that there may not be a commitment even to that framework of services being at least equal. And frankly, as I've looked at it in terms of the training possibilities, the backup possibilities, in a whole number of ways, the consolidation with Janesville actually looks better as well as cheaper. And better as well as cheaper seems to make the most sense for our residents. So I hope that we're serious about looking at the contract in terms of, okay, what do we need to do with the contract to get to go on that consolidation? To the ambulance, speaking to the ambulance, I think that it's important that we know and understand that even if we go to referendum this year, it's going to take us time, and we might not pass the referendum the first time around. You know, are we just going to say we're not going to buy any new equipment? We're not going to replace any equipment until such time as consolidation takes place? All we're doing is deferring maintenance. And I think everyone on the screen has been involved with government enough and long enough to know that deferred maintenance is always a really crummy idea, that it ends up costing you more in the end. Consequently, I continue to be supportive of the purchase of the ambulance. When the city revisited it, there is a commitment on the part of the city to find a way to do it.
Thank you, Bill. Does anybody else want to speak on this particular line item?
I just wanted to let everybody know that it wasn't just the ambulance that was supposed to be replaced in 2021. It was also a tender. And if you don't have that list, I can certainly send it to you.
All right. So we'll move on to our next line item, which is discussion and possible action regarding charges for special events. I'm not sure who added this one on the agenda. I don't believe this was one that I notated. Chief, was this something that you added, or Linda, was it?
No,
I believe
this is what we were talking about.
Yep,
okay.
Yep, I remember now.
We're the fireworks on ice, as y'all know, were quite a surprise to some of us on the commission that just kind of felt like we should have had a little more heads up on it. When people ask me about events and about my fire department and emergency services, I like to know what's going on. One of the things that has happened in the last several years is that whenever we have had a special event, there has been a charge for the service based on the hours and some on equipment. So I think that probably what we should be doing is come up with an actual, some type of an actual policy as to the special events, as far as what it is, what's going on with the event, what you expect for a crowd. The chief needs to sign off on it. After an event has taken place, I think that it's fair that we should get a report. Well, did you get the 200 you were expecting? Well, no, I only got 100. Well, next year. I just think it's a matter of knowledge, but then it's also a matter of consistency. The high school, when they use our ambulances, they pay for the extra time. We did it for Civil War Living History Days, and we also did it the first year for Wally Fest. I believe we paid the second year for Wally Fest. We had the ambulance until they were needed. So I'm just thinking with COVID and any of the extra events that we hopefully will come back to, that we should have some kind of a policy in place as far as a charge for the use of our services. We cannot, you know, I mean, yeah, 911 is there, but I believe as a member of this commission that it's our responsibility to do what we can do to protect the community. Maybe there's events that somebody wants to have that there should be an ambulance and they don't think they need an ambulance. It's just up for a discussion.
And do we currently have anything on the books to show a charge for having requests or presence at events? Do you know if that's currently being charged for?
We do charge for, such as when we go to the high school for football games, soccer games, we do charge them by the hour, the time that we are there. It's our second ambulance. So sometimes it's taxing on if we don't have enough people, you know, we don't use the people that are working that day. We charge them. So far, our animals, they're not charged. We have charged for other services throughout the community, depending on they call and request us. We just check to make sure that we can cover the ambulance, and yes, we do charge them.
Okay. Okay. So I guess the question now, Linda, is that charge adequate? Charging the raw costs of the service that we're providing to them. What do you think? It'd be the time. I think it's just the hours and the time.
The hours and
is there a standardized process for it?
No.
I guess I'm going to defer to Jenny again. Is it for any event that's requested fire department to be at? We just charge them our time.
Our charge right now per hour is $50 an hour.
Okay. For any requested event, right? Just so I know that that's the process. If someone requests the fire department to be at an event, we charge them $50 an hour to be at that event.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, I think you can develop a policy or have our lawyer develop a policy and describe the types of events that you would expect coverage at. I mean, in addition to anything that would be excuse me, that would cause some type of injury or would have a tendency to cause some type of flames like the fireworks, or, I'm trying to think of anything beyond injury or fire. But if you describe it, then you put some liability on their end in making it a responsible.
A rock concert with pyrotechnics involved.
Okay, yeah.
Another kind of
under state fire code.
Rather than just saying, well, whenever they ask us, I think they have to have some ownership in taking responsibility.
Brian, go ahead. What were you going to say?
So I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I agree that it's a very valuable discussion. Probably warrants some sort of a policy or putting something in place, whether it be ordinance or something, whatever is the right way to handle it. But I do want to state that I've been in this commission for almost 16 years. I was not aware, and we've never discussed in 16 years as a commission, I was not aware that anybody requested these services to be present and that we charged for them. And I've never heard of any fees. Not that they're not warranted. I agree that they're warranted and they're necessary, but this has not been a discussion in almost 16 years. So I value this discussion. I just want to say that.
I like your idea, Teresa, and having the attorney write something up for us.
I'm curious, I don't know the answer to this at all, but I'm curious, would there be some sort of a threshold, or is there any thought of a mandated presence based on some sort of definition or a threshold that might be part of that policy?
I think a sensible thing would be first to ask Janesville whether they have a policy and procedure in place. I think that makes sense if we're looking toward the potential of consolidation, that we try to kind of check with Janesville on any of these policy changes so that we have policies that are closer to being compatible.
Yes, I agree.
Chief Rhodes, at this time, can you do you have any recommendations about those costs that Janesville has associated with its charges for special services?
Yes, sir. We do charge for events that people request, and then also events that may, for instance, if you have an event, a large festival during the summertime that has a high humidity, chances are you're going to stress your EMS system, so that would be an application there. We certainly could take a look at the charges without a problem and reassess what we charge the fire department. We could capture the hourly rate plus probably vehicle usage, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not a big deal.
Okay. Do you feel that's something we need the attorney to look at, or would you like to handle that in-house?
We could have the attorney look at it. It's always helpful to have a professional looking at that kind of stuff when it comes to charges, especially if you want to extend the charges to the community. It can't hurt.
Okay.
And then one of the things that that Jenny and I talked about is the dollar amount is based on the paramedic payroll. So that way, if we end up, if there's a paramedic and 2 firefighters, or if there's just 2 firefighters, it was just kind of, when we were talking about it, it was just a better way to cover any excess equipment that might be out there in the event that it could be an overage, but more than likely not when you're using equipment.
So maybe that would just be part of the fee schedule, is depending on the piece of equipment, that each equipment type, an ambulance or a tender or a ladder truck would have their own corresponding fee. If you're requesting just an ambulance, then it's probably a lower fee than having a ladder truck out there, which costs a lot more and takes more people to operate. And you'd incorporate those hourly wages into operating that piece of equipment. So that might not be a bad idea to examine that and see going forward.
Well, and some of this, I think, it's not even going to be up to, it's not a request. It's if you are having the pyrotechnics or whatever, this is what's going to be required. So this is going to be the additional charge. And then they'll have to decide if there's value in still holding that event, or if they're going to have to increase their cover and so forth.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree that it's critical to understand how Janesville manages this. But I would definitely foresee, if we can accomplish anything reasonable, probably putting cloning ordinances in place to enforce these fees. We found in the past that charges and whatnot are really enforced by ordinance. So that would help the whole process. But it'd be interesting to see how Janesville manages and approaches this.
Well, I appreciate everybody talking about this. I just felt like we need to make sure that we are taking care of covering our people and the equipment just as much as we do the events that we have going on in the area. But I do have a question for you, Brian. When the campgrounds do things, when they have events, do they often call the fire department? Or, I mean, do they do checks for routes to specific places or anything in the campgrounds? I'm not a camper, so I don't know.
Generally,
we'll get you a tent.
No, thank you.
So generally speaking, no. For special events, and right now we're not talking about fireworks either. Right. So I assume the city has a fireworks ordinance. Otherwise, you can't have fireworks up at Shelburne Park.
That's correct.
So And let me give a 30-second synopsis. Fireworks are illegal in the state of Wisconsin, everywhere. And there's a definition of what a fireworks is. Mm-hmm. Unless the local municipality has adopted an ordinance. And then if you have an ordinance, a permitting process is required. Some sort of document or a permit is required by the state statutes. So quite some years ago, what the town had done, well before I was on the town board, they adopted literally the statute of fireworks statute. If a municipality has not adopted fireworks ordinance, there's not a means to even allow them at all in that community. So in the campgrounds, to my knowledge, they've never requested standby service. I don't know a better term for it, but requested presence. To my knowledge, no, nothing for special events. And they have special events pretty regularly. It's a trend the last decade or so in campgrounds. And really they're RV resorts. They're not tent campgrounds anymore. So they do Christmas in July, they do pumpkin carving in October. Every weekend they try to have some sort of an event that they encourage a gathering because that sells their campground. So, and generally speaking, with special events, no, I'm not aware of any service other than if something goes wrong and they literally call 911, yes. So from a fireworks perspective, I've only issued a handful of fireworks permits in the last 16 years. Almost always, I take it to the town board and ask for the input. The statute allows the chairman to issue permits, but anytime it involves a community gathering or a public gathering, I've asked our town board for input on the application. And when it comes to that point, we ask for a site plan, insurances, the pyrotechnician's license number. So we're pretty thorough on that. The few that I've given for private people at homes, that's been pretty rare, probably because the public doesn't know that a permit's available at all. Generally, that's just a family gathering. There hasn't been as much oversight on it. We're expecting 5, 10, 15, 20 people. But I don't know if I've answered what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure because I know that they do events out there, and I wasn't sure if maybe that was just something. The roads are so narrow in some of those campgrounds, and so that's kind of why I was questioning it.
And the way that we charge for fire protection service is by the campsite. So the number of campsites, occupied campsites in a campground, that's how their fire protection, their standard coverage is determined. So anything that happens within the campgrounds, it's private property. So in order to go on to the property and extinguish a fire, they have to have access, and there are restrictions on making sure that they have access throughout the campsites for fire service protections. And I think it's state regulation that takes care of that. There's certain criteria they have to meet.
Thank you.
So at this time, is there an interest in a motion for taking action on the special events charges?
I think it must include seeing what Janesville does for management to make the best policy possible moving forward, to make that attempt. Mm-hmm. So if the chief can bring information to us about how Janesville manages it or foresees it being managed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a motion, Brian, for next meeting?
Yes.
All right.
I'll second.
Who seconded it? Was it Linda? Linda, you seconded it?
I will.
Okay. So a motion by Brian and seconded by Linda to have the chief bring back the information regarding how they bill for special events in their charges. Any discussion on the motion? Is that how you read it, Brian? Is that a sufficient?
I think that motion's understood.
Okay.
I think so.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. If there are no other things to discuss on that line item, we'll move on to the fire chief's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This month's report, training this month is we've done some recruit training as far as SCBAs, self-contained breathing apparatus, PPE, self-contained breathing apparatus, confidence course, management of attack lines, equipment familiarization, and ambulance driving procedures. For the department as a whole, we did bloodborne pathogen, our annual recertification or annual training qual for that, for EMS services and response. CPR, reviewed the 4-gas instrumentation for the detection of hazardous materials, especially flammable vapors, oxygen, items like or chemicals like that, and then discuss carbon monoxide and natural gas emergencies. We've had 89 calls this month. I hate to report this, but the roof at the station is leaking, like Niagara Falls coming down the kitchen walls due to the ice buildup. We did try to put some de-icer on the roof that failed. So once again, fire station is old. It needs to be maintained, but we have a leaking roof situation. So excited to figure out what the resolution on the fire station will be someday, hopefully, because our people are in those conditions and we need to take good care of them. Vaccine, 25 of our personnel have the vaccine, 19 have decided not to take it. We've onboarded 2 new employees because I had 2 employees transfer or go to work for Janesville. The city, within the past several months, we had a pretty catastrophic failure of the 911 system as far as communications. That was due to a denial of service or a data storm that was created internally in the county's network that basically the county 911 could not page fire and or we could not talk to them. So Chief Pickering from Edgerton, which has a lot of training in technology, and Chief Peace from Beloit, and myself and Captain McManus from Janesville have been working with county to come up with a plan to build some resilience and some redundancy so that this doesn't happen again. And one of the things that needs to happen is that instead of sharing the 911 radio system with the county's normal data network, we're recommending to create a network that is only for emergency response and 911 and that data. And so you may think that the radios and the towers are connected and they all talk to each other by radio waves, but that's not true. They're all connected to the internet. So they all talk to each other via the internet and decide who's closest to grab the signal and receive it and transmit it. So there's a lot of projects going on there. There's 4 or 5 initiatives that we're trying to work through. And then as being on the commission, the 911 commission, we'll make sure that we'll try to get those issues addressed so this doesn't happen again. And so if there's any questions, I can answer them, but that's the end of my report.
Chief, on the roof situation, that's a pretty serious issue. We can't have water leaking into the department out of control. I know that we do have some spring, I would call it the spring thaw, because spring is on its way, but I do believe that we had that roof fixed in several parts, maybe not as a whole roof. Do you know if this was a part of the roof that was fixed previously over the past couple of years, or is this a new area that has developed issues?
I think it's a new area that's developed issues. Okay. It's right over the kitchen.
Okay. All right.
I know this
so
may seem like a Pollyanna question, but is there any way to take the ladder truck out with a roof rake and just rake the ice off with the use of those pucks? I too have an ice dam in my house. I don't have the use of a ladder truck though. And thankfully we stopped with the waterfall that was happening in my house was stopped by thankfully Ace Hardware and their roof pucks.
Yeah, so we did access the roof. We did not use the ladder truck. We just used ground ladders. So so we did get up on the roof and try to open that up. You have to be really careful. You know, if you hit the roof too hard, you can crack the membrane or the the roofing material. So we did go up on the roof. Yeah, I was just thinking that if you took a roof rake, grabbed off the first layer and then threw the roof pucks up and see if that would help to loosen it. Just a thought. We put the crew on the roof to try to work on that. So
but at this time, do we need to get estimates for repair of that roof? Is that the intention, or is the roof just leaking because of the excess buildup of water because of the ice?
I think, until it starts to thaw, I think it truly is the ice dam backup. But once it stops and we can get the ice and snow off the roof, we need to get a contractor up there to take a look at it.
Absolutely.
Yes, and one of the great challenges is it's a flat roof, so some of the other conventional, we can't really rake it per se, or roof pucks are for sloping roofs. And
you got to be careful. If you think you're going to take a sledgehammer to it or an axe to the roof, you'll puncture that membrane, then we'll really have problems.
A bigger Niagara Falls.
So should we be talking about when we're going to relocate our building?
Well, I think we're definitely going to have a contractor look at the roof and do a repair if necessary.
Does this put our new building a notch? Because I was also very, very concerned when it was bitter cold and how the conditions of the building and the people were working. I was very concerned about that. We do really need to talk about this building too.
I agree that's going to be coming down the pipe in the next month. Likely next month it'll be on the agenda once the contract that the chief was talking about gets sent out. Then we'll know what type of structural station is envisioned, and then can kind of start talking about the building at that point and planning for that. So that is my intention to have that on next month's agenda. I didn't have it on this month's agenda because we had enough to talk about without having any concrete details yet of what the station may look like. So that's kind of where I was going with that, but it will be on the next month's agenda. All right, if there's no more discussion on the fire chief's report, we'll move on to the president's report. Scott, are you here tonight?
He is not, so I will give the report.
Okay, thank you, Jenny.
In March, we will be voting on a new president. Scott will be, he's not going to be up for president, so we're going to vote for a new one. And this month, we voted to a donation of $30,000 towards new portable radios for the fire station. BC Lucas is working with Captain McManus from Janesville in order to get those new radios ordered and set to go.
Super. Well, thank you very much. That's awesome. All right, moving on to general items, discussion and possible action regarding community events. This will be listed on the agenda for the future agendas because we do have things that happen in the community, and as Linda stated, having a notion of what those events are and when they're taking place, it does have some easeability when we're talking about that with people that are asking questions about the fire department and some of the events that we do attend. So the community events in general can just be between municipalities, what's taking place, and if there's a fire service question or asked about being provided at those events, we can list that under these community events and just have that discussion. Linda, do you have anything else you want to add?
Nope.
And then one other general item that I have as well is I was approached by the Janesville Union about negotiations of the current, for the current fiscal year or current 2021 for work conditions, pay, benefits, and such. So we will be entering negotiations likely next week. I'll reach out to the president and we'll try to sit down with the chief and create that scope of the expectations from each. So that will be coming down the pipeline for the next meeting, but we'll be drafting that at some point. And also, I believe there is an update with Koshkanon. The town of Koshkanon has decided to contract with Fort Atkinson. They have reached agreement. So we will expect to see Koshkanon's contributions cease after the 30-day mark that is required of them to post after the first of the month. So it's about, I don't know, about a month and a couple of weeks, about a month and a week, I'd say. So by the end of March, beginning of April, they'll no longer be requesting coverage and paying for coverage for the Bingham Point area. It'll just be Tebow Point that they'll be contracted for. So any questions on that or any other general items to discuss tonight? Go ahead, Brian.
Jenny, do you have all the town contracts other than maybe Koshkanon's portion yet?
Do I have them signed?
Yeah, do you have them in-house?
Yes.
And I assume you have the recent signed copy of the memorandum of understanding with Janesville.
The addendum?
The addendum?
Yep.
So
yes, I do have it now.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. Yep. Thank you.
Do you have something to say, Linda? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could put Koshkagon's contract on the agenda for next month for Tebow Point. I feel like we need to review that, the charges that we're charging them.
We're charging them based on their equalized value of Tebow Point, though, the same as we're charging everybody else, the other contracted towns.
That is what we're doing for Tebow Point. I thought that we're just doing a smaller amount. Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification.
What's an overall smaller amount because it doesn't include Bingham Point coverage. So the portion of Tebow Point, that formula was used for that area.
And are we clear, is our department clear of the entrances in and out of that area? Because I know that seemed to kind of be up in the air when we were talking about that in the meeting as to whether or not it was a through road or if you could go around. Could we just make sure that our department has the current information for that road?
Yeah, I think the general understanding is that there's one reliable access through Dahlman's Landing, through the county park, on Clear Lake, not Clear Lake Road,
Charlie's
Bluff Road. Bill Burlingame, County Koshkanon Chair, said that there's access further to the north and east through private lands. I would imagine, I don't like to assume this, but I assume that the fire department, and maybe Chris is a little bit familiar with this, but that's not a reliable access point. We may find that on a call that's a bonus out or something, but certainly we couldn't rely on that as an primary access or going into a call.
I feel like this is maybe we're talking too much about it in general items. Can we put this on the agenda for next month? Because the road situation is concerning to me for that Tebow Point.
This is Chris talking on Jenny's computer now because I'm home. We are very familiar with the access to Tebow Point. There's only one access, that's through Dahlman's Landing. That was a concern for us in 2008 when we had the flooding out there. But we are very familiar with the access and very familiar with the condition. We've covered it for a lot of years. So they do a good job of keeping that maintained for the most part. And but yeah, as far as that's the most reliable access that we have to that location.
And Chris, so since the flooding, it has still been maintained, right?
Yes, after the floods, they did the repairs that needed to be done, and they keep it plowed. So yeah, it's maintained the best that they can maintain it. It's not optimal, but you know, it's private property, and we do have access to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that access.
Okay, any other general items for tonight? And Linda, I will place that on the agenda, Koshkanon contract for next meeting. I have that wrote down here. So, all right, the next date is March 17th at our normal 6 o'clock time. And that will be, I believe that is a Wednesday like normal. So if there are any questions or comments or concerns about that particular time, then if there's none, we'll move on to adjourn the meeting.
And so on our next meeting, we should have the information from Janesville. Could you make sure that we have that ahead of time so that we can look at it?
I believe it's going to be sent out to the municipalities first. Brian and Issa should receive it first. So it likely will get vetted through those two municipal contacts. And if Brian, if you would please, or Nisa, forward that out to myself, then I can share that with the commission just more as an update while the actual conversations are still taking place between the municipalities, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Brian, you're muted.
I think the chief alluded to that Anissa and I, as a committee appointed by the commission, would take a quick look at that and see if there's any need for any tweak to the draft before sharing it. But I don't know, like, without looking at it. And I would imagine that very soon, in a matter of the next few days, Anissa and I and the chief will be talking about this draft and try to get it forwarded out to the commission as soon as possible.
Okay, so as soon as that's available, please let me know, and we will have all the commission members review that and have that handy for next meeting, if possible, if that's the soonest that we can receive it. So, all right.
Gonna have the ambulance on for the next agenda item. I mean, we do still have to do something with our equipment. We have to figure out how we're gonna pay for this.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Brian, seconded by Linda to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? We are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.